The Japan Content Creator Pack has landed, and this is one I've been looking forward to. So I want to know, are we going to be able to make realistic Japanese neighbourhoods? Do the assets look the part? Do they have the right density? How are they all going to work together? So that's what I'm going to be exploring today. I'm going to be using the Tarumi Junction game save for the video today. This interchange is definitely the most detailed one that I've done, and I think it's going to be a fitting backdrop for the video. So in addition to some nice complex infrastructure, there are some additional road networks we can build off. This little interchange exists in real life, and that's the very spot that I'm going to be building this Japanese suburb from. If you haven't seen the Tarumi Junction video, I'll leave a link at the end of the video. Thank you once again to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. Discounts for the new release Indiana Jones and the Great Circle are available with 20% off. And I can see now that City Survival Frostpunk is almost half price just 3 months after release. There's some pretty good savings to be had. However, bargain of the week, for me, goes to medieval hack and slasher Chivalry 2. It's available for just £5. You can't get much for a fiver these days. I played the original quite a bit and I can confirm it is a lot of fun. Regardless of whatever genre you play, you can make your money go a little bit further by purchasing any of your games through the link below. So check it out, see if there's anything for you. Don't forget, it does go a long way in supporting the channel. Thank you very much. So this is basically going to be the area that we are going to be developing today. It's a fairly substantial bit of land, and that should pretty much keep us busy for a full day. So all of the development that you see here was really just thrown up as a bit of a background for the interchange video. So I have no qualms deleting any of this stuff. It was all pretty much spam zoned just so we can get a bit of background for the interchange video. So first port of call really is just to go and delete all of the stuff that we don't need here. And really just clear a nice bit of area for development, and we'll redo some of the roads while we're at it. So the major road that's running east to west, we're going to leave that well alone. That is basically going to act as our main arterial. All of the smaller neighbourhood roads though, once they're cleared off, I'm going to make them a little bit less wide. I want to get rid of the pavements on there as well, and usually the Japanese neighbourhoods, at least that I've seen, you know, they don't tend to have pavements or sidewalks, so really compact residential development and super narrow roads as well. I will attempt to just add a little variation in the elevation, really just to add a little bit of point of interest more than anything else once we start rebuilding down here. So on Google Maps there's a pretty good variation in terms of road layouts, and quite a few to choose from really. I guess I went for something of a bit of a broken grid, and we'll go and just add a bit of variation. So I am going to add the big assets, the schools, we'll add all the add-ons on there as well. These assets are brilliant, by the way. They look exactly what I can see, or what I can find rather, you know, on Google Earth. They do look a little bit plain without the add-ons, so we'll definitely pop them on when we do it. So I went and added some curved roads and a couple of dead ends. And really this is where we're going to have quite a bit of our commercial. So talking about commercial, you'll see on the real life one that they do actually build within the loops on the highway ramps, which is kind of wild. So I'm going to do exactly the same here in our build today. So first thoughts on these assets that we're using for commercial, we've got a little bit of mixed use in here as well, is that they are excellent. They are exactly the type of assets that we need really to give us a decent bit of variation for commercial. And realistically, I'm going to be able to use these in any build. And the funny thing is, I think some of the commercial assets, not necessarily the ones on the screen at the moment, but some of them look a bit more like what I would expect industrial assets to look like. So I think that's going to be cool. We're going to be able to build out some more realistic, to be honest, you know, industrial zones with some of these commercial assets, which is pretty sweet. I'm going to crack on and really just kind of build out the main strip that we have here. I'm going to use a pretty good variation with heights and lot sizes. I want it to be a real sort of eclectic mix along the front. One thing I wanted to do when I was building out was really just try and make sure that none of the assets are really too close to the road. I think when I was having a look on Google Maps, there's a bit of a mix. Some of them are right up against the road and some of them are set back quite a bit, and there's a fairly good variation in real life, so there's no real set building size or uniformity really. So that's the first strip of the commercial down, and I kind of like the look of that already. One thing you'll see everywhere is electricity cables, and I'm going to use both of them really. I'm going to use the small one and I'm going to use the really tall ones as well, and if nothing else, I just want to make it look as busy as possible. So if you have a look at this shot here, you'll see there's various heights that are used here and run along the length of the road. So yeah, we'll try and recreate that best we can, and it does look pretty good. Once we've got the whole street built out, it does look good. Now this build is of course a suburb, it's not a proper full city centre build, but that said, I do want to have some large service buildings in here, and really I'm going to take every opportunity to get as many of these in the build as I possibly can. The big telecom building at the back, I can see that as being maybe a big government central building, something like that, and that's really going to be one of the tallest ones that we're going to have in this part of the city. I really want to focus on creating medium density and medium height buildings, and we're going to use, again, as big a variety as we possibly can, and I'm going to be grabbing obviously the assets from the Japan pack, but I'll be using whatever else I can from maybe the French or the UK as well. One thing that struck me when I was researching the area was the amount of apartment buildings that there are, and they have a sort of similar pattern to the ones here at the top right. There are tons of examples and really big neighbourhoods that are built just from these really big high-rise apartment buildings, so yeah, it's unusual, didn't really expect to find as many. So down at the commercial hub, I'm going to continue to go really high density, and it's probably a higher density here than what I actually found on Google Maps, but I kind of like the look of it as I was building along, so I cracked on. So here we can have a nice little look as things are going, so keeping it relatively low rise at the front, and then I'm going to build up the heights as we work our way back there, so that's not a bad start. Cool. So let's continue to expand with our commercial, and again I'm really just sticking to all the Japanese stuff, and more than anything else I just want to see what the assets are like. It is of course the first time I've seen these things, so let's try and get as much variation as we can. And as I said, I want to try and keep things just as tightly packed as possible. So a similar idea on the other side, and I will try and get some of the mixed stuff in here as well. So I reckon where we can, by adding the mixed use buildings, we're certainly going to be adding to the population, and we're going to try and keep this as a really busy walking area of course too. So this gives us a kind of first view down the main street. Don't have a name for it yet, but I think you can get an idea with all of the electricity cables sort of swaying in the wind, and I reckon we just keep building up layers and keep building up height. And of course what we need first is we need the road network, so I'm going to continue using those little alley roads. Pack the buildings really just as tight as I possibly can. I'm just going to use Finder and just try and look for a little bit of variation, and then we'll just grab Move It and we'll just squish them all together. I really do like these assets, they are really nice, these little ones. And I think if anything I would probably have them even tighter together, so not so much with the gaps in the trees in between, but it is what it is, it kind of fills an awkward spot, and it will do for a few spots here and there. So let's get this little area built out quickly. So switching back over to some commercial, I want to build that right up to the highway. Again, it's just keeping up that density that I want to be doing here, and right behind it I'm going to be adding the first of these homes, and it's really just to get an idea how it looks sort of packed tight together. And you'll probably notice that I'm not using the Japan pack there, I'm actually using vanilla assets, but we'll come back to that in a minute or two. So I'm going to use that opportunity to get some big service buildings in. That big one in the middle of the screen, I think it's a firefighting one, that is going to be absolutely 100% perfect as a big telecoms one for a UK build. So that's basically a huge BT building, huge exchange building. The add-on, that's going to be like a small exchange building as well, they're absolutely spot on. All it's missing is a telecoms tower on the top. It's time to start getting some surface parking in here as well, so we'll make the most of that. And you find a fair bit of surface parking in these suburbs, specifically around some of the bigger commercial developments. Alongside some of the bigger Japanese pack assets, I'm going to use some of the base game signature buildings as well, and we'll create a little bit of interest in that part of the street with some interesting buildings. So ideally I would have liked to just zoned in our low residential, and obviously I give it a try, but in the end it just looked out far too spaced out for what I was looking to do. So most, not all obviously, but most of the residential stuff when I was looking is super tightly packed together, and I'll show you what I mean. So this type of layout or a variation of it is really common. As you'll see here, there is really next to no garden area. There's a little bit of greenery perhaps in between the buildings or a bit towards the front or the back, but really there's not much in the way of gardens. And this is the kind of look that I really wanted to recreate. as you'll see from the stuff that's zoned in, it's not really possible, far too much gaps in it for what I was looking to do. So what I ended up in the end doing was revisiting this, and we're going to use some more of those vanilla residential assets that I showed you a few minutes ago. So continue to build up the commercial district here, and again we'll get some of the fancier signature buildings in as well, and why not? Get that back up further against the road, and again use the opportunity to get some of these big service assets in here as well. There we go, smaller fire station, a little bit of commercial, and then let's get some rail travel on the go. I'm going to use the elevated subway here, and I've never actually used this asset before, so pretty nice to get hold of it and see how it goes. And in fact, the real life train station at Tarumi isn't a million miles off the model that I'm using in the game here today. Now obviously this is just a one-off build, so really these trains aren't going to go anywhere, they're just going to go to a kind of dummy station and we'll just get them moving for demonstrative purposes. But let's make it look good while we do it, you know. So let's get some curves in here, and again the curves kind of like the highways, I want them nice and tight together. If they're not going to play nice, we just delete them, we just redraw them, and here you'll see me having to do the curve at the top first, or sorry, the bottom first, and then get the curve on the top done directly after that. And I don't mind them switching together there, that's actually looking kind of nice. But nice smooth curve, exactly what we want, and that gives us a nice opportunity for the next part of the build. So I'm going to use some more of the other pack assets. I think that is a UK building I used, if I remember correctly. It looks pretty sweet and it absolutely fits in there. Again, I don't want to be adding too many super high-rise buildings, but I will add them every now and again just to kind of punctuate the skyline. Right here in front of the train station, I think I would like to make that pretty dense and get quite a bit of housing in here as well. There'll be an opportunity there just along I'll call it the main road. I mean, it's got a pavement, so we'll call that the main road. I think we've got an opportunity there to add a decent bit of commercial or a commercial strip. Perhaps some of the smaller 2x2 assets would look pretty nice there. I am a fan of those sort of, I'm not quite sure how to describe it, I guess sort of triangular assets, the kind of yellow ones there. They would look perfect against like a riverside build, for example. I know plenty of places that have got those kind of buildings that would look a really great fit. So having a look at ground detail, pretty sweet. Not too mad about these advertise here and your company ads here, kind of go over and hide what's there already, so it'll be interesting to see what they look like once the businesses move in, eh? We're building up plenty of density here, and although this is going to be a limited build, you can kind of really get a feel for what a kind of varied Japanese city centre build might look like. There are so many builds that I want to do, but I think doing a specific Japanese one would be really nice. I do believe there's enough variation in this pack, along with perhaps, you know, a few other buildings from some of the other packs, to actually have a pretty good attempt at doing a Japanese build, but we'll see. It's always down to time, isn't it? So let's get the last few of these buildings in this part of Down in place. These are really flexible apartment buildings as well. They're going to look great again in so many cities. Really nice to get some more apartment options, and the French ones were great as well. They make a super nice addition, but I do like these. There's even more variety, especially with the colours. And I've not even really tried to recolour anything either, which is pretty cool. Here I'm going to add quite a splash of colour with the next development. I'm going to create a driving range, and specifically this one here that I found in Tarumi. So this is the Sun Kobe Golf Club. That looks like quite a facility there, doesn't it, in the mountains? And quite a good view towards the sea there as well. So pretty straightforward. I'm just going to use one of the assets, create a bit of a clubhouse, and the next thing I'm going to do is create a perimeter fence, and this real large fence is part of the Japan pack as well. So this is part of the mesh from the school assets. Quite nice. And really that's something that's been missing from the game, some really big fences, and we will have plenty more opportunity for using these later down the line as well. I'm thinking 5-a-sides for a UK build, lots and lots of options. So looking pretty plain just now, and to be honest with the building I'm not going to do a huge amount more to it. I'm going to add a little bit of a balcony of sorts, but that'll pretty much be it. The main thing really is getting the layout for the ground in place more than anything else. Now one thing that did bug me a little bit is that in terms of a driving range, it's probably about 50 meters shorter than it should be. So, that's what it is. wasn't up for redoing the roads. I think I can kind of get away with that one. I think you can probably see me measuring it out there. It should be about 300 meters. I think this one's about 240, 250. So it's what it is. I'll suck it up. I'll live with it. So to get the pattern and the colours down, I'm just gonna roughly draw it out with knit lanes. Doesn't need to be too exact, I don't think, for this relay, but the knit lanes will just give me a nice indication, and it'll give me some nice curves actually as well to keep us right. So again, I'm going to roughly use the example on the real life one, and we'll just try and recreate our own little version here. So we're going to fill it in with surfaces, and if I can, I'll use the surface tool as and when. Works quite good for circles, and I'm going to draw the little artificial, what do you call these things? Not sand dunes. Bunkers, right? Yeah, we're drawing some fake bunkers as well. So same idea. Pop them in with the surface tool, and we're good to go. So I think overall we're just going to, was thinking about doing individual ones, but there was no point in that. We'll just do the whole lot, and we should have a little variation between some of the striped green areas, and then I'm going to darken them up by sort of overlapping with some of again those colour ones as well. We'll use the blacks and we'll put it over it. I think this is supposed to be like a little river or something, but yeah, we'll draw that in as well. It looks kind of nice. I didn't quite get it matching there, so I'll just zoom in and we'll drag it down, and we'll follow the curvature of the bunkers and the greens. But yeah, I wanted these ones to kind of stand out a little bit, so I'm going to replace them, and then we'll just darken them down using the black set from the colour surfaces. Yeah, I think that's looking like a pretty cool addition to the city. Perfect. Now we will be able to add a few decals here. I'm not going to be using a massive amount of decals in this build. I want this build done in one day, so the decals I'm just going to selectively use them as and when I want. So it's time to start fleshing out the area around the train station, and I really always like to add car parking underneath these elevated sections. I think it always looks pretty nice. I think you definitely expect to see plenty of commercial around here, and ideally you wouldn't want your apartment building slap bang up against it. It's not to say that you won't see it, but we'll try and keep the Sims happy. So I think some of the bigger assets along here would look pretty nice. And again, these commercial assets I am going to take right up to the rail as and when it will allow me. Then we've got a nice opportunity here at the back to add some more service buildings, and I'll keep that spot there in the middle clear. I think perhaps a little basic plaza might look the part. Now, to prevent things looking a bit too stale or a bit too uniform, I'll try and add some big blocks and add a little bit of heat here and there as and when we can. Look at them assets, they are fantastic, aren't they? Brilliant. So one thing I do want to do is I wanted to extend the big commercial road, and again I'm just going to extend the strip and give it a bit of variation with some of the smaller assets here again both sides. And then once these are in place, same idea as earlier on, I'm just going to shift them a bit back, and then we'll extend the electricity cables both heights, and we'll do them on both sides of the roads as well. So having a scan through here, I think that building there really just looked a little bit out of place, and I don't mind chucking in the odd high rise here and there. I think it does look the part, but for this one I just decided to relocate it and maybe have it down a little bit closer to the station. And I reckon once we build along that, or around that rather, that will be a better fit, and yeah, I think I'm happy with that one. So let's get that area built up just alongside the big building here, and then we can have a quick look at the extended main road. Yeah, it's looking pretty good, happy days. And I reckon at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to just continue building out in the same vein. So at this point I'm going to put it on a time lapse, I'll leave you guys with some music, I'll catch up with you in a few minutes. So we got most of the buildings in, not quite all of them, but most of them at least anyway. I do want to concentrate and get a little bit of detailing done. As I said, this is just a quick build, one day build, so I'm not going to really get into the nitty gritty too much, but I definitely want to add a couple of little plazas and a couple of little nice seating areas. So pretty straightforward. I'm using El Gendo's new Japanese surfaces pack. It's excellent. This red surface you see here, as well as the concrete one and the pattern tiled one, are all part of that pack, so go check them out. But super easy detail in that one. You just draw a pattern with a path, fill it in with a bucket tool with your chosen surface, a couple of trees, a couple of benches and a couple of fountains, and you're good. I think with these neighbourhoods that we've put in, we used the line tool and we've got that density that I really wanted. Ideally, I'd like to have a little bit more variation in the asset, but I think more than anything else, it was that density and that real closeness together of buildings that I wanted more than anything else. So over to the golf course, or the driving range really, I do want to kind of dirty that up a little bit. It looked a little bit too bright, so darkening that down with a few decals is a good shout. And again, you're going to just pick and choose a few little areas, use the surface pack again, and we'll add some textures and details and a few trees here and there, and really just fill some gaps. I think either side I'd like to extend the paving, and again I'm going to use that same pack again, and we'll use some of the tile paths as well, just to make it look a little bit different, you know. So I think this shot here down the main road, more than anything else, sort of embodies the real feel of the build today. I think the variation in the assets, the colours, the big electricity cables swinging around there, as well as the road infrastructure running through, all sort of combines to give that sort of Japanese look, or at least the way I kind of envisage it based on what I've seen on Google Maps. Of course, if you live in Japan or spent any time there, then you might have something else to say about it. But I don't think it's a bad effort, all said and done, based on the tools that we have at our disposal. So I'm going to crack on and get the last of the surface work done, and again, nothing too fancy, just extending what's there really already and creating a wider walkway for the Sims more than anything else. I do want to fill some of the gaps in the background or behind the buildings, and really just flesh out the build a little bit more than anything else. Obviously with that density that I'm really shooting for, I don't want a huge amount of grass shown. We kind of want that all really just kind of concreted up and nice and busy looking. And there's quite a few of these areas really to kind of fill up, and I think if I come back and do a dedicated sort of Japanese build, I think that is something that I'd probably work on quite a bit more in terms of surface work, and really just kind of fill probably almost all of the gaps until the development ends. So at the beginning of the video I asked, you know, do these assets look the part, do they have the right density, and are they all going to work together? So in terms of the overall aesthetics, I think they have done an absolute knockout job putting these together. The service assets are superb, the detail on the residential, the mixed buildings and the commercial are all absolutely second to none. There's a ton of variety in terms of density. The only thing that didn't really work for me was the residential ones that I specifically wanted in my build, but the ones that we do have provided are fantastic, and you can still make some really great neighbourhoods out of them. I think being able to create streetscapes like this, it looks completely different than anything else that we've had in the game so far, and that's really exciting. And I can't wait to see what's going to come next, because we have, how many packs have we got left? I think another 4 packs, which is awesome. And I asked, are they all going to work together? And I think they actually do more than that. They don't just work with each other within the pack themselves, but they're going to work with lots of assets from other packs, and even the vanilla game too. So super versatile pack, I am extremely happy with it. Big thank you to my Patreon and YouTube members. Thanks again to Instant Gaming for sponsoring the video. That's it for me, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.